Steve. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Man, living the dream, refusing to wake up.
Living the dream how?
Oh, I'm here in Nashville at the label doing some promo for the record. Record's finally out. That's been 2 years of back and forth, wondering if it was ever going to happen. So, yeah, man,
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it's been out a couple of weeks. What's been the most surprising reaction since it's been out?
I would say people commenting that they love this album instead of hearing like specific songs. Most of the people who are commenting on stuff are just talking about the album as a whole. And since it was a concept project, that's really cool to hear. And too, like this one song "Winning Horse" right now is kind of taking off organically and doing its thing. So that's pretty cool to see as well.
What did you learn from the first album that's helped you with this one?
With the first record, yeah, I feel like I was very honest and maintained my integrity, but I still try to be aware of certain opportunities in the way that we produced it and the content that I talked about being new to the scene. I was also very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed during that process. With this new one, I just kind of like said no to any, walls or barriers and just did exactly what I wanted to do the way that I wanted to do it all the way through and didn't worry about if it fit in this certain category or would work in this certain commercial space or whatever. I just wanted to be honest and assertive and tell the stories the way they are.
Why did you want to do that? Why did you want to be that honest?
Well, I feel like there's a lot of issues that are talked about these days, but sometimes they're kind of glossed over. So I with this particular project, I went and listened to a lot of hip hop music, not like the hit hip hop songs, but like deep cuts to learn more about not only learn more about that culture and the struggle within that culture, because I feel like there's a lot of universal issues with that culture and lower middle class, working class culture where I come from, but
Uh,
just the way that they tell the stories and just say it how it is, I feel like sometimes can be, or most times can be more powerful and reach people at a deeper level. So songs like Pill, 215634, Appalachian Alchemy, those were risk takers, I guess, for me, just being that open and honest about my situation in my early 20s or my friend's situation with 215634, or even, using the word methamphetamines in the song Appalachian Alchemy. It's not a word that you typically hear, you know, coming out on a country record,
it's hard
you
to
know.
rhyme. What rhymes with that?
Yeah, it just happened to rhyme too, so it worked out well for us.
So when you were just like delving into this hip hop, which artists did you find a connection with?
Oddly enough, it started with Johnny Cash, who's not a hip hop artist, but I
No.
really dove into Johnny Cash because I had the opportunity to speak on a documentary about Johnny Cash's faith and struggle with addiction. And in doing so, I studied a lot of his songs, read his biographies, autobiographies, biographies, whatever. And he was a very matter of fact, kind of writer as well when it came to certain issues. There's one song that sticks out called "What Is Truth" that I believe even played a little bit of a part in us pulling out of the Vietnam War. Um, but then Mac Miller kind of came into the scene through some friends. I started listening to his music first for the production. I really love the production, and then I grew to love him as a lyricist. And then in that, someone introduced me to Nipsey Hussle. And most of us who know anything about Nipsey know that he was tragically shot and killed a few years back. He came from that life. He spoke about that life and the struggles that come from that life, and that became a bit of a compass for me, just listening to the way that he tells those stories and like I said, how matter of fact he is about the situations. Other than that, I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop, T.I., Eminem. I was a 90s and early 2000s kid, so there was a lot of great hip hop back in the day going on. And that was just one part of the inspiration though. I was trying to pull from that. I was trying to pull from classic country, classic rock, Foo Fighters I was going back and listening to a lot of Foo Fighters at the time, and uh, just trying to pull from as many people that inspired me as possible to throw them into this project.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have a very eclectic music taste.
Well, I don't know if I'd say it's eclectic, but I just like things. I don't know. It's pretty across the board. I'm not a very genre specific listener, nor do I believe any of us really are. If it's a good song, it's a good song. It doesn't have to live within a certain box for us to relate to it or feel something from it.
I completely agree with that 100%.
I would imagine you got records behind you.
I have a lot of records behind me.
I would imagine there's a lot of diversity in those records. So
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
as well as with the rest of us. So I wanted to make a cross genre, multi-genre project. And, fortunately it can live within country because you hear me talking and everything that comes out of my mouth is going to probably sound pretty country to some degree.
So I want to go back to something you touched on earlier. You said that you were really pleased that people were listening to this album as an album. Are you the kind of person that listens to albums in full still?
Yeah. So if I find an artist if I hear a song that I love, I immediately want to go back and listen to their body of work. So here lately, it's been Brittany Howard, who is Alabama Shakes lead singer. There's this really cool band I just found not too long ago that's from the Nashville area called Colony House. But I think that's just a respectful thing to do. If you hear a song that you really love for the first time, it's the first time hearing this artist. I just think it's obviously you like this, so why not go in, dive in deeper, and see if they got anything else to say that you can resonate with.
So when you were putting this album together, how important was it when it came to the track listing, like the sequencing of the album?
Oh man, I did the sequencing so many times. I ended up finalizing it on a napkin at a restaurant one day. It was really important to like go through things in a certain way. So the first song, Outside Dog, I was very frustrated when I wrote that song, and there was a lot of ego that came into play with that song. But it was just I wanted to just get it out because I was trying to remain humble, keep my head down, do the work. And there's always that dog barking in the back, that's telling you to act a certain way when people are disagreeing with you or not believing in you, and you're trying to believe in yourself. And as bad as that ego can be, it can also be that voice that tells you, "Hey, buddy, we can do this." When other people are saying you can't or you shouldn't. So I felt it was important to get that in there, get it out of the way. First song on the record, move on to the matters at hand, the struggle that I was seeing in the world, the things I wanted to focus on that I really wanted people to listen to. And I was hoping like something as crazy as Outside Dog would at least make people's ears perk up, whether they like it or not, and be like, okay, where's this going? And immediately into What Do I Know? And then going through Pill, 215634, Appalachian Alchemy, focusing on a lot of that. Forgotten Man. I wanted the overlying theme to be, the struggle that I was seeing around the world, and that's working class. First and foremost is what interests me and what's important to me because I come from that. And within that demographic of people, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of addiction. I've seen a lot of financial struggle. I've seen prison. And I wanted to highlight those issues. But then you get to like First Place and Winning Horse. And I wanted people to be inspired that are out there working hard and like, let's come off of this heavy stuff for a minute and let's, lace up our boots and get back at it. And then, the record was so heavy up to that point. I was like, I got to let people know that I don't take myself entirely too seriously. So we had to throw Fan on High and Chicken Shit in there,
Yeah.
and just for a little breather, and then ending the record with just having Have a Creek. I thought it was cool to come from ego and end on humility and spiritualism. And I felt like the journey of Damascus biblically kind of represents that. And so I wanted to represent that with the project.
Is there one song on the album that you're particularly proud of?
Man, I love all my babies, but I'm really loving Winning Horse right now. when I listen to Winning Horse, I just feel like I can run through a brick wall when it's over. You know, it's seems to be touching people in a great way. Appeal as well. I mean, that's a very personal story, and I've I've been proud to see that that's touched people.
With the very personal songs, do you ever worry that you're putting too much personal information into songs? Does that ever cross your mind?
Man, I mean, I don't really feel like I'm all that special. I know it's easy to, or I've seen a lot of artists that you get into this, you start doing this, you have a song on the radio, whatever. It's like they're sometimes this aura sets in around them where it's like, these things have happened, so there must be something special about me. And I just don't believe really that I'm all that special. I'm just another human trying to get through it all. So I feel like if I share my stories and I'm honest about them, then there's somebody out there that's either going through it or has went through it, and they maybe have felt like me sometimes and feel like no one understands it. And hopefully, if I'm just able to just say it like it is and be honest, it'll resonate with somebody that's either going through it, been through it, and they'll know that there's somebody else out there that's willing to just say it and put it out there.
But having said that, you know, you talk about being working class and just keeping it real, but you're working with people who are at the top of their game. You know, obviously we've got Little Big Town. You've toured with people like Travis, and what are you learning from those people that's helping you on your journey?
Well, I mean, Little Big Town is a very great example of a group of people that have been very successful, but are still just great human beings that will treat you. Yeah, they're the kind of people that treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I learned that early on through meeting with them. You know, we got them on the record, but also just to throw some love to people that are out there grinding and maybe don't have that following yet. That's why Jenna McClellan is on the record. She lives in Mobile, Alabama. She plays the bar circuit down there. She's putting her own music out, but I mean, she's a mom, a wife. She's killing it. One of the most amazing singers I've ever heard in my life. And I feel like, you know, maybe if I could just bring a few hundred or a few thousand people her way, like
Nice.
that's just a tip of the hat to the people that are still out there grinding and haven't had the opportunities that I've been blessed with yet.
Talking about opportunities, can we talk about your grandmother?
My grandmother.
Yeah, I believe she's the person that taught you how to play guitar, right?
Yeah, so Does Heaven Have a Creek was kind of a tribute to my granny. That was my great grandmother. I lost her when I was 14 years old, but she taught me my first three chords on guitars, E, A, and B. And then she gave me a Roger Miller's Greatest Hits CD. And she was like, you can pretty much learn any one of these songs with those three chords. And so, yeah, man, Granny was my homie. I would go over there every Saturday, mow her yard. She'd make me grilled cheese, macaroni and cheese, and lemonade, and we'd sit out on the front porch and just share war stories.
Nice. Did she play a lot?
She didn't, she sang in church and stuff, but she wasn't. I was baffled when found out my granny knew how to play guitar. I guess when she was younger, my family had a little slot on local TV where they would play like bluegrass gospel style music. But like my great uncle, he played a wash pail bass. So a string tied to a broomstick on a hinge with a big wash pail at the bottom. And you change the notes by pulling the broomstick back and forth, So that was some old hillbilly stuff going on, but all my family's, musical in some kind of way. My two aunts, they, play piano in church. My mama sang, my dad sang, my mom sings. So,
do you have any records or artists in particular that remind you of growing up?
oh yeah, for sure. Two in particular. Number one would probably be Steve Earle, the Guitar Town record. And then the second would be John Fogerty's solo project from '97, Blue Moon Swamp. Those two records in particular are on repeat in my childhood memories. That was riding around with my dad in a semi truck listening to those songs over and over again, or riding down a back road between me and my dad, or between my dad and one of his buddies while they was out having some Sunday beers on gravel roads, listening to that stuff. So that was a good soundtrack for those days.
Yeah, so if Steve Earle's your soundtrack for your youth, how does it feel when you get to like hang out with this guy in real life? Is that overwhelming?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't really get starstruck. I've never asked anybody for an autograph or a picture or anything like that, but I obviously when the first time that Steve came into the room or I was within 5 feet of Steve, I was just like, holy shit, that's the dude. That's the guy. We actually we recorded a song together. We didn't end up putting it out. We've talked about doing some other stuff in the past. But I just think I love his approach, and I try to take a little bit of what he's told me about how he applies himself to his projects with this project. With Ghost of West Virginia, he actually went over to West Virginia and got to know the families of the coal mining victims that were in that tragedy however many years ago. He wanted to write a project about that. So he stayed over there, he met their families, he went to meetings to try to help, get money for these families and stuff. And then he wrote this project. And I grew up for a long time thinking that these Steve Earle songs were his stories. And that's how I fell in love with him, because I related to him, because I was like, I feel like I'm growing up in these scenes that I hear in these songs. And I said something to him about it one time, the first time we were writing. And he's like, that's not me, cuz. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. He said, no, it was a song called Someday. It's about this kid. In the first verse, there's this kid working on this 67 Chevy at this full service gas station by the interstate, just counting out of state plates, pumping gasoline. He said, well, we broke down one night and pulled up to this full service gas station. And this kid was in the garage. All the pumps were shut down, but we needed some gas and we needed a tire fix. And this kid was just in there working on his old hot rod car. He turned all the pumps on and got us back on the road. And he said, I got to go on down the road after that. And I was wondering, what that guy's life might be like in that little small town. And so he wrote this song called Someday. And I was like, dang, that's even cooler than I thought. So, I just wanted to apply a little bit of that to this project as well. The first project was very me, 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 me. And, there's a lot of these stories in this current project that are my stories as well, but like 215634 obviously isn't me. That's my friend, old childhood friend. What do I know was I was just trying to put myself in the position of somebody that come from where I come from, that's still living there right now, and looking at everything going on in the world, and just like hoping that there's a little bit of peace somewhere that shows its face.
I just want to quickly ask you about what you've been listening to recently. Like, have you been listening to any new artists, maybe?
Other than Brittany Howard and Colony House, I haven't really been digging into much stuff. I did just find one of the coolest artists I've ever seen come out of this city, and he's working on a project right now. His name is John Oye. He's a Louisiana dude, but he's got like this New Orleans punk. I don't know how to explain it. They got a saxophone. I just did a Whiskey Jam takeover last week for the album release, and they opened up the show, and it's like the most energy I've ever seen in my life on stage. So I'm really excited for his new stuff to come out. But honestly, I try to just take a break from it, because I use music when I'm working on the project as a tool, kind of. So I kind of get burnt from listening. And I'm just in an experimental phase right now, trying to figure out if there's a new sound coming for the next project. And I don't want to tap into anything too much to influence it until I know where I want to go.
Okay, that makes sense. Is there an album that you really love that is completely different from the music that you make?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Mac Miller would definitely be one of
Yeah.
those, I feel like, most of that's probably on the hip hop side of things. I would say probably him, definitely. I mean, Brittany Howard, I would say Brittany Howard, but that was also an influence with working on this project, as far as like the tones and stuff that they use on her music, guitar tones and stuff, was really inspirational, because it's just so weird, and the sounds are, it's not something you would ever expect to come out of an amplifier. But that's all Oscar Charles. That dude is a mad scientist, my producer.
Yeah.
I don't know how he took all these songs and made them feel like they were cohesive. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like with this project, we covered so much ground. Hopefully everything sounds different than anything else anybody's hearing, but hopefully at the same time they're hearing a little bit of everything in it.
You seem to like collaborating with people. Do you have a dream that you want to collaborate with somebody?
I'd love to do a song with John Fogerty. He's also a childhood hero, as far as original inspiration goes. Honestly, Alicia Keys. I
Nice.
don't know. It seems, that's probably seems very odd, but there's just
No,
something
aim
about
high.
it. Yeah, I think it would be really cool to do something soulful with her. I love piano, so that just makes a lot of sense to me as well. But yeah.
I know that you wrote My Boy in 2016, right? It's an old song. I checked today. It's just about on 62 million streams on Spotify.
Wow.
That's a lot of people. Right?
That's a lot. It's been our number one stream song every single day for a few years now. So
Do you let that affect your songwriting? Do you like it? Do you have that in mind at all when you write a new song?
no, not at all. I feel like every song's supposed to sound like it's supposed to sound, so I'm not trying to make sure that I maintain any certain sonic space or anything. Each song is supposed to be approached individually. It was funny. I seen a comment on YouTube the other day. This guy said, "How in the hell?" It was on the song "Chicken Shit," and this guy said, "How in the hell do you go from My Boy to this?" And I was like, "Well, I guess you just heard."
Yeah, it just means you can do anything almost.
Yeah, it's like, and that was all part of this too. It's like the whole narrative behind Damascus. One part being the road to Damascus from the Bible, but also Damascus is a type of steel where you take different types of steel with different carbon levels or nickel levels in it, and you put it in a forge together. And what comes out is this, usually they're making a knife out of it, and the blade will have all these really cool, intricate lines that are unique to each piece. And it's all the different layers of different types of metal, but it's also very strong, can be sharp and super sharp, beautiful looking piece of metal. And I wanted the excuse to be able to do whatever I wanted to. So throwing that narrative in there is just being like, okay, my metal for the knife that we're building here is just like Johnny Cash, Mac Miller, Nipsey Hussle, Foo Fighters, different genres, different artists that are inspiring me right now and have inspired me my entire life. Throw them in the forge, beat the hell out of it, and make a project out of it. So it was all part of the plan as it started to show itself.
Yeah, I love that. So what does success look like for you at the moment?
That's such a good question. I've been asked that. I'm always trying to figure out how to articulate it the best. I mean, man, I just want to see more people at shows. I think at the end of the day, the main goal for everybody involved, my team here, fans that we already have, my band, anybody involved in this whole thing is like, I don't know what language we can use here for the most part, but
Anything.
asses in seats. We're just looking for asses in seats, man. I came off my first number one, and you feel like before you get that, you feel like that's the pinnacle. You get a number one, you get a gold, platinum record, whatever. You've done the thing. And I went and played my first headlining gig after that at a 1,500 cap room, expecting to see a bunch of people in there. And there was like 220 people there. Well, very appreciative of those 220 people, but also realize how much work we have to do. And it's been, I think, almost 2.5 years since then. And we're still grinding away. So hopefully we will persevere, and we have started seeing some growth in certain areas. That 200 has gone up to 600, 700, 800 in some areas. And that's really awesome to see. So just continue focusing and hopefully get the snowball rolling down the hill.
Well, I wish you continued success. I have to say, I really like your music, but I really like you as a person as well. So I feel like good things are coming.
Thank you, man. We're just trying to tell the truth as loud as we can over here.
That's a good way to close. All right. Thanks very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir, Steve. God bless. Have a good one.
I gotta know before I go, does heaven have a creek where I can swim in my old blue jeans?